Hey everybody, welcome to the Equity Guru video show. I'm Chris Parry, Fearless Leader, talking to Steve Saviuk from Valeo Pharma, ticker symbol VPH. Steve, how are you doing?
Very good, Chris. Nice to be with you.
It's been a while. Look, I think the first time we talked, your company was a very different beast than what it is today. It was, although the company's been around for a while, you've certainly done a lot of transforming in the last year and a half. Is everything going to plan?
Very much so. I mean, if I look back to last year at this time, we were about 30 employees. We were expecting the approval of Radesca, which we'll talk about, and we were in really early stage negotiations with Novartis on this licensing deal that we entered into for two asthma products. So today we're 100 or very close to 100 employees, fully national sales force that's really world class as far as, by Canadian standards in terms of number of people, and three really exciting products that we launched in addition to our existing portfolio of products that are growing, albeit not growing and sustaining the business. But these three new products are really the reason why people are starting to get interested in following Valeo.
Yeah, I think if we look at Canadian pharma as being a stereotype, most companies in the space would be what you'd call immature companies, right? They've maybe got one product that they're trying to work through approval, or maybe they've bought a couple of little things here and there to sort of validate themselves. But it's rare to see a company that isn't a giant that actually has products that are being marketed currently, let alone reimbursed by the provinces.
That's
You guys have managed to step up to that next level. Uh, Ahead of plan, on plan, behind plan?
I'd say pretty well. You always want to say you're on plan, and I would say probably every company on the planet is behind plan,
Right.
but we're close to plan.
Okay.
The thing that I find is when you're negotiating for the rights to certain products, we have our timetable, and the licensor has its timetable, and they don't necessarily always match. So discussions do take time. But what I like about the three products that we've just launched, Radesca for it's a blood thinner and used in the hospital, very appropriate in this time of COVID because it is part of a COVID protocol in most hospitals. But its use is essentially for hospitalization where there are, whether it be a knee implant, hip implant, cardiac, anytime you're bedridden after a surgical procedure, you don't want blood clots to form. Low molecular weight heparin, of which Radesca is in that family, is one of the staples of use in hospital, fairly large market in Canada. But that deal, from my first phone call to our partner to ultimately first sale of the product, probably took 4 years. Now that's an abnormally long period of time. By contrast, when we started our discussions with Novartis for these two new asthma drugs, Entero Air and Atectura, we started discussions, I remember, mid-March, and by end of March this year, the agreement had been signed. So it took a full year to negotiate, but we were able to launch the products in less than 90 days, which is a real testament to the team to be able to take that completed contract and then do all the inner workings to actually get product onto the market. And then what it was probably 120 days, we've actually built a Canadian sales team that is, as I've said, we compete against GSK and AstraZeneca in the respiratory space, and our sales team is as big as theirs. It doesn't take a back seat to theirs in terms of talent. We're right up there. So we're very excited about these products, and it is transformational, not just number of people, but in the revenue potential of our company. Last year, if I was talking to you, I might have talked to you about a company that could do 40 million, 50. We're now talking about a company that could do $100+ million within the next 5 years. In fact, earlier than that. So it's quite a change. It's been a lot of work, but to grow that quickly, you need big products, and to have, when I say big products that can generate significant revenue, and to do so, you need to address large population of patients, and asthma is exactly that type of market. There's about 4 million people in Canada that suffer from some degree of asthma. About 1 million would be put into the category of needing daily maintenance So they take their asthma medications regardless of symptoms every day to control their symptoms. Our two drugs fit into that category. So we're going after a population base of about 1 million. It's about a 700 to $800 million market. And what's very interesting about these two drugs that were developed by Novartis and licensed to us is that in the clinical trials that Novartis performed on over 7,500 patients around the world, including sites in Canada, that these two drugs showed significant benefits over the existing standard of care. What that means is, asthma is not everyone that has asthma feels their symptoms are under control. That number is about 40% of asthmatics. And we feel that these drugs will make a significant dent in improving asthma therapy in Canada. And it's our goal and our team's goal to actually get that message out to physicians who are by their nature very inquisitive scientifically. They want to see the results. They want to understand why did we use these particular chemicals in the drugs, what have you, the strengths, why are these strengths there? And this is, our team is able to address those questions. And I think these two drugs will be a big success in Canada.
So I think what's really interesting to me about those deals is the partner. Novartis is no small company. And for them to decide that you guys would be a better means of distribution in Canada than them is a big nod to what you've built. Not to mention, if anyone looking to do due diligence on Valeo, if they think they can do better due diligence than Novartis, I would guess they'd be deceiving themselves.
Well, Novartis, we get that question often. Why would Novartis license these drugs if they're so potent and so powerful or such potential? And you have to look at, big companies have big strategies, and Novartis is about a $45 billion company. Probably only 3 or 4% of their revenues come from the respiratory area. So you can see that they have some other really important drugs and a number of exciting launches that they'll be coming to the market with over the next 5 years. But around the world, where our two asthma drugs, Entero Air and Entero Air, are approved in many countries, about 30 countries around the world. And in most of those countries, Novartis, the company in those countries, is actually marketing the drugs. But what they decided in certain countries, Australia, for instance, Portugal, Canada, is that they felt that based on what their local teams had in terms of personnel, that they would be better off finding a partner. And you're right that we were selected by Novartis. Is certainly a feather in the cap to my entire team that I think did a very good job of convincing Novartis that we had the ability and the resources to launch. And I know there are companies that are considerably larger than ours that were at least in the running at some point in time or wanted to acquire these drugs and were not able to do so. So I feel pretty good about that. And we won't let Novartis down. We've got a team out there, as I said, that's second to none respiratory wise, from our business unit head, who's from Merck Sharing, and has got a strong asthma background or in terms of launching asthma drugs, to our regional sales directors across Canada, to our 50+ person sales team that has actually started to engage with physicians a couple of weeks back. So it's a big job. It's not as I mentioned, physicians are trained in science-based medicine. So they want to see the results. They want to see the trials. They want to understand. So there's a lot of information to transmit. So it takes a top team to be able to do that. But the results of the clinical trials were so compelling, and that's what drew us to these products. They really have they have the ability to become the new standard of care in asthma therapy maintenance.
Would I be right in suggesting that creating a top-line medical sales force is more complex and takes longer than sourcing a variety of products that could go through those sales channels?
It's I was very fortunate, and the company Valeo is very fortunate that we brought in and we had a gentleman by the name of Fred Fasano join us in January as our new president and chief operating officer. And Fred has a strong history in several therapeutic areas, cardiology amongst them. He's a pharmacist by training. He was president of Servier in Canada, which is a mid-tier international pharma company. He'd also served as the head in their Italian operations, did some work in Latin America. So very rounded, well-versed individual. And he put together that hiring plan very quickly. And we were able to execute on it. It took a lot of people's efforts internally in terms of the interview process and what have you. But it's come together very nicely. And you know, when you're hiring that many people, there's for sure at some point in time going to be maybe a few changes here and there. You can't expect to hire 60 people and everyone is exactly the right fit. But the key people that I've interacted with are just so strong and so knowledgeable. And you know, you're talking people with extensive pharma experience that we're, you know, director level in various other companies, in some cases VPs with other companies, or or managers, what have you. In addition to being specialty sales reps or primary care sales reps. So a lot of thought gone into it. They're going to be well supported. Marketing programs are being put in place. They're, as I mentioned, they're calling on docs. And when I say calling, that's a, you know, in these days, that's a very interesting word, because it doesn't necessarily mean physical interaction. It means a lot of the interaction, like what we're doing right now, where, you know, accessing physicians, whether it be in the hospital or even, can be a challenge. So, but we've got programs in place. But I look forward to the day where we can have a lot more you know, physical interaction with our constituents. And
Look, let's talk about your three highlight reel products and give a little bit of detail of what they are, because I think a lot of people out there looking for, you know, bio investments sometimes scoot past the product themselves and go more to what the stock chart is doing, or what the promoters are saying. Let's get into the guts of the trinity of products that you have that you're currently selling to the market now.
well, you know, I'll touch first on the three key ones that are going to drive 75% of our revenue in the future. Already Radesca, which is something called a low molecular weight heparin. So it's a naturally derived product that is processed and used to treat, as I mentioned, it's an anticoagulant or a blood thinner. This is about a $200 million market in Canada. It's been that way for the last 25 years, so it's a relatively stable market. We're coming to the market with something called a biosimilar, and the advantages of a biosimilar are primarily price, but secondarily is availability. Heparin is in short supply around the world. There's a lot of shortages. We have linked up, and our licensor is amongst the largest heparin producers in the world. Great manufacturing capabilities, a superb partner for us in terms of bending over backwards and trying to get products to us. So we've already deployed an 11-person sales team across Canada. So this is a distinct team that is separate from our respiratory sales team. As I mentioned, the product is right now our #1 selling product, and we expect sales to hit approximately 30 million per annum. And I would expect that we would hit that within the next 24 months. But we've had, and so this morning we put out an interesting press release where we talked about reimbursement, and something that a lot of investors are, I mean, some are starting to pay attention, and they should, because it's one thing to have a drug. The other thing is who's going to pay for the drug. And we see instances sometimes in Canada of a great drug, but it's just not paid for by the provinces or insurance companies, and therefore it's left to the patient to pay, and that's a very difficult road to hoe. So what we announced today is approximately 70% of people that have a benefits plan, a plan that their employer provides, have coverage on Radesca. And we've announced that now 7 provinces or various institutions have agreed to reimburse, and we expect that to be right across Canada by the end of the year. So that's an important aspect in marketing any drug, and it's always who is going to pay for the drug. So we feel very strongly that Radesca will get the market share that we're predicting, which is about 20-25% of the overall low molecular weight heparin market. And as I mentioned, sales in the $30 million or so range. Now, the real big guns that we have, or the real big gun, is a product called Entero Air. It's an asthma therapy developed by Novartis, as I mentioned earlier. It's a triple therapy. It's the first triple therapy to be approved by Health Canada. And what that means is there's actually 3 drugs that actually help control your asthma. 2 that relax your bronchial tubes and your lungs, and 1 that provides an anti-inflammatory effect, which is really the root cause of asthma, is inflammation in your lungs. So this drug is very safe. It's been extensively tested. It's shown incredibly or dramatically good results in a couple of things, helping to reduce the symptoms, helping to reduce the buildup of asthma attacks. And these are not just statistically significant where you can say, well, it's X% better now. This is actually clinically better. The patients will feel better with this kind of drug. For those that are uncontrolled or whose symptoms have progressed past their current medication. Big market, 700 million market. We have a very detailed marketing plans as to what we're going to penetrate, but we think these two drugs will do about 100 to 150 million dollars within 5 years. So that's a significant. Now, what may interest your viewers is that the two drugs were tested against the current standard of care, so an existing drug on the marketplace. That drug on the marketplace does did last year $212 million, and our drug shows significantly better control of symptoms and reduction of these exacerbations or these events, these asthma events. And so when you look at that, you say, well, this would be logical that this drug should capture some market share. It's going to take time. Drugs don't come out of the box and right away they shoot up. There's that progression, that curve, and then that acceptance, and then that adaption, and then you start seeing that higher. So the first year is a lot of education, and then the second year is where you start seeing the true big financial numbers coming in. And that's true of us, or it's true of Pfizer. It's pretty well the same way. There's a lot of reasons for it we won't get into here. There may be, but a lot of it about market access, who pays for the drug. They don't all come on the same time, these type of things. So these are, but as much as these are exciting and will drive most of our revenues, we have a really interesting Parkinson's drug that is starting to hit better a stride now. COVID certainly impacted the ability to see physicians, but not only that, but Parkinson's is generally an elderly or an older person disease. You had a lot of older people had trouble getting out to go see their physician. So there was that kind of slow. It's starting to pick up. We have a very interesting rare cancer drug called Yondelis. Again, we're giving it a lot of tender loving care. It's a very small population, but a very good drug. So we have a number of drugs in total. Right now we're marketing, I believe it's 11 or so drugs. But again, for an investor, you want to focus on the ones that drive. It's 80-20 rule, the 20% are going to drive 80% of your revenues. And these
some of those are just nice little earners that are going to keep the market share they have for the next 20 years. Some are ones like, if you can even get 20% of a $200 million a year business, it's $40 million a year. It comes close to your market cap.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we have to remember that's what we have now. That's certainly not where we want to stop. We're continuing to talk and engage with companies about the ability to leverage our sales force. And specifically, I think on our specialty, we have two units basically in the company. One is a specialty unit. The other is respiratory. As you can see, respiratory is very important in terms of size. But on our specialty unit, which has Radesca, Yondelis, and a number of other drugs, our sales team has room to market more drugs. So we're definitely looking in that area to try to add to it. And, it's what's interesting is, Chris, is a year ago, I wouldn't have expected us to be where we are today. I was expecting it, but we weren't there. And we had a lot of obstacles to overcome. And what I see for next year is that the same dramatic change in the company, again, moving up to and you said it earlier, a new level in Canada where we're going to become dependent, dominant pharma, and dominant, not dominant to everybody or everything. Dominant means being the best at what you do, being the best in respiratory, being the best in neurology, picking certain therapeutic areas and developing a true expertise that foreign companies will seek when they come to Canada with their drugs.
It's, I guess it's kind of weird that that's a different way of doing things in Canada. To take existing drugs and build a sales force, and not just try and find lightning in a bottle and sell yourself off to a bigger fish. You're clearly looking to build yourself into the bigger fish, which I guess means that there's a lot of little fish out there that you've got your eye on. Can we expect that there might be more activity on that front going forward?
we are always looking for other assets, whether it be drugs or a combination of drugs, and if they come within the confines of a company, that could be it within Canada. And I think as time goes on, you might actually see that expand a little bit geographically. But you're right. If you ask me, some of our pet peeves that Canada hasn't developed maybe the type of pharma companies that other smaller countries have developed. That when we develop a new technology in Canada, and we have every right to be proud of our biotech background, some foreign company comes in, swoops it up, and buys it, and we benefit to it to some degree, but not nearly as much as the buyer. So I think it behooves us to become a commercial. We're a commercial company. We're not a development company in the sense we don't do R&D on drugs. We in-license, but it would be great if some development that came out of Canada as a biotech company, for instance, got to that stage where it had a drug that was approvable, that we could interact with them and say, okay, we are going to be your commercialization arm, not just in Canada, but maybe internationally. That's maybe years down the road. Right now, we want to build revenue, build profitability. And I think, those are the recipe for attracting, other opportunities, is just be successful. And that's the mandate for our board. One of our directors said, definition of success is grow the revenues, grow profitability, and that will be the beacon for other companies wanting to, do business with you in Canada. And we've already done, some good deals, obviously Novartis being one. Yeah. So I would expect that kind of those type of arrangements will accelerate in the years to come.
There's certainly a lot of drug development in Canada, and from my experience, my 10 cents worth is they get to a point where, in order to commercialize, they need to start selling, and that's almost an entirely different business than the development of the drug. So for you guys to be hanging out there with your shingle to say, we got the sales team, we're good enough for Novartis, we should be good enough for Canadian startup 7529. I can see a real opportunity there for you in the long term. Let's talk about the market. You guys raised, or you sought to raise $10 million recently. You actually pulled 11.5, which is a good sign that there's a lot more money out there for you than you were looking for. So you're now cashed up. I'm guessing that some of that cash is going to help you get to the place where you're profitable.
We were approached by Research Capital Corporation, where we did a bought deal with them. I think that deal could have been bigger. I think the share price was very attractive. There was a lot of interest. At one point, we had to say it's enough money. We weren't exactly enthralled with the share price that we had to raise capital at, but we would have liked it to have been higher. But it is what it is. You have to, that's the reality of the capital markets. So 11.5, yeah, that should get us to where we are cash flow break even. And that's what I think investors want to know is, are you going to stop? Are you going to have to come back to the market and issue more shares? And that's something we want to avoid as much as possible. So we think we have the run rate ahead of us now and the room to get to break even. And that's an important part. And that's, I think, that's when companies, I think there's a different investor base that starts to get involved, is when you're no longer burning cash, but actually generating cash. And then what you do with that cash, but there'll be there's no lack of opportunities. There's a lot of drugs around the world that have been developed, that are innovative, that can actually bring a medical benefit to patients that are not in Canada or will not be in Canada. And it's our job to bring them here for the benefit of Canadians, both healthcare providers, patients, shareholders, employees. Everyone benefits as a result of these drugs.
So you obviously right now the share price is lower than you'd like it to be. Certainly since the offering, it's dropped. I like to look at that as an investor and say, is the company better now than it was before the drop? And if so, it's a great buying opportunity. And it certainly looks from your news releases over the last 3 months that the company's actually advanced itself significantly, despite where the market finds itself.
Yeah. I agree with you totally. I mean, it's very frustrating, and I take it to heart when I see the share price not performing or seemingly being very disconnected from what I believe the value that we're creating in the company is. But I think these are short-term aberrations, and I think that investors should take advantage of them, or could take advantage of them, maybe. And I know that some are, including some of our existing shareholders that feel that, yeah, exactly, the company is in a better situation than it was in 2 months ago, and yet the share price is down by 40% from 2 months ago. It really is a disconnect, but that's something we just have to battle through.
That's
And
summertime.
yeah, that's part of being in the capital markets. And what I like is that we are getting more institutional investors in our shares. I certainly spent a lot of time talking to retail audience. They've been our backbone since we launched the company as a public company, 3 years ago. And it's just, I think we got to maintain that grassroots support. But clearly, as we develop more revenues, we're getting these institutions. And I know during the financing, I know in the current financing, 9 of the 10 million, so of 11.5 million we raised, 1.5 million was the president's list, which is essentially insiders and people very friendly to the company. So 1.5 million we continue to support. We're still a large ownership base within the company and our directors. Another million was retail. That could have been 5 times that amount. And then there was 9 million that was brought in by institutions, of which one was a US fund that put in approximately $6 million. So a lot of support there. So we think that it's building. We're getting it. The right pieces are being put in place. Frustrating share price, but I think that's going to take care of itself in the coming weeks.
Certainly, and if the news comes out the way that you've illustrated things on the plan, there'll be a lot of pressure on that share price to move up really quickly. I think that what I really like about Valeo is that in a market where froth and hype is prevalent and things rocket up 40% in a week and then drop 40% the next week, I think your business model is one where if I put my kids' education fund into Valeo, I don't really think over the next 2, 3, 5 years that it's going to be a lesser opportunity than it is today. I think you're putting together the building blocks. Since we've been talking to you, you've been putting together the building blocks. You outlined your strategy early on, and you've been nailing what you set out to do. So, as opposed to the hype and froth, I think I'd prefer my money to be in your lap than the other people's. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate what your company's doing. We'll talk again real soon.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chris.